Hello and welcome back to the Hive, everyone. I'm Brenda, and this is Quilting with Queen Bee. We were supposed to be quilting our Alice in Wonderland 3D illusion quilt, but Coraline, my faithful and trusty long arm, needed a spa day. So I took her to the spa, and hopefully she'll be back in about 3 weeks, tip top and ready to rock. Meanwhile, I didn't think it would hurt if we got into a little something else. Um, Kind of what I was thinking was doing a little bit of skills development. Now, for those of us who have been quilting for a long time, this could be a little refresher, maybe a trick or two that helps you along. But if you are just starting out quilting and you're just getting the hang of things, maybe you don't know what half the terms and lingo mean. We've all been there. We all have to start somewhere, right? So I thought I would start off with half square triangles, or as we affectionately call them, HSTs. And I brought out a little bit of my stash. These are fabrics that have been hanging around for a little while, and I thought I haven't used them, and quite honestly, if we were to make an error on them, cut them the wrong way, it's not going to tear me up. Whereas if I'm practicing on fabric that I intend to use for a quilt, that I've picked it out and carefully curated it, and then I make a mistake and I don't have enough of that fabric, it's going to make me a little bit unhappy. So I've got these, and I encourage you to do the same thing. Um, get some fabric that if you cut great, awesome. But if maybe an error happens, no big deal. It's it's no pressure fabric. That's what I'm going to call it. No pressure fabric. So I have kind of in mind a few different things that I want to show you. I want to show you easy ways to make half square triangles, and then a few different ways that they can actually be used in quilts. And some of them might be a little bit sneakier than you might expect. We know pinwheels have half square triangles, and there's a few other blocks out there that use these, but they're so dynamic and they can be used in so many unique and creative ways. This is where playing really pays off, because you can learn something new just by twisting them around this way and that way to discover something brand new. So I'm going to pick a couple of these out. I'm going to get them ironed up, and then I'm going to meet you back here and get the cutting table all cleared off, and we'll get started. All right. So I grabbed two different fabrics. I grabbed this pink one. It's got little diamonds with a little hint of green in there. And then to accent it, I picked this green one with pink and purple flowers. And as you can see, it's not perfect. There's cut marks down here. It has been very well loved and very well used fabric. This one's even crazier. It's almost got little legs and stuff. But that's okay, because I can just trim away what I don't need. And oh, my my rotary and my cutting tool. I can straighten these out. So I am just going to go ahead and lop off these long legs. I'm not really paying too much attention about straight lines or anything like that. It is just merely to make it a little more manageable so that I can know what I'm working with. Because right out of the gate, I know none of the sides are straight. They're crooked, and that is just fine because what I will do is when I'm looking at the selvage over here, I'm looking to kind of see which way the grain of the fabric goes. So I know normally if this was a full piece with the fabric, which is what you'll commonly see in directions as WOF, if I see that, it means from this side all the way to the other side where you see the other selvage end. And the main reason for the selvage is to keep your piece from unraveling before you are ready to use it. So I'm already missing my selvage end on this side, so I really don't have that to help me. Anyway, so I'm just going to take this and I am, let's see, I need my bigger ruler. Let me go get that. All right, here we go. So we're going to use our big ruler, and now I'm going to pay a little closer attention, and I'm actually going to switch the camera angle so you can see exactly where I'm putting the ruler when it comes to making these cuts, because we ultimately want to end up with straight sides. So here we have our piece, and we have this divot in here. So what I'm going to aim to do is I am working to try and still keep this fairly straight according to what the selvage on that side told me, but I want to carry it just past this line that carries through the entirety of this particular piece. So that is where I am going to start getting my straight line. So there is our first straight line. Now I am going to be looking to determine how big is this piece that I'm going to want to get, because I'm looking at trying to get a square. So now I'm going to move my piece over and kind of unwrap that. And I am going to be looking at what is it going to take. Let's keep it a 10-inch square. You know, a lot of layer cakes are out there. They come in 10-inch squares, and that's pretty common, and it makes it pretty easy. But this is what if we don't have that layer cake to help us out? So then I'm going to count out over to 10. And I am going to place my ruler there, and the ruler is long enough to be able to line up on the line on my cutting mat on both sides. So now I'm going to make my second cut, and that creates to where now I have two straight edges. So then I'm going to turn this like this, And the reason I turned it the way that I did, it was not random. It may seem random, but down here is my shortest length. And I have to be conscious of that because when I'm trimming from here on out, I don't want to short myself and not be able to get 10 inches across here. So now I'm going to be looking to line this up against the line down here because remember that's my first line that I cut. So I know this edge is straight. I know this edge is straight. Now I'm going to get my third straight edge. And that is going to trim off the rest of this wonkiness here. You know, I couldn't even begin to tell you what I did with this fabric, but it must have been fun. It had to have been fun. All right, so now we can go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And this one, line it up. And this is actually a really nice, fairly straight piece. I'm not confident on this edge, but it could be used for a 2.5-inch strip. You can just trim a little bit more off, but for our purposes, we're done with it. And we have a 10-inch square on our first fabric. So now we'll put that aside for a moment. And now we're going to work on this one. Now this one, I am going to look because it's a little smaller and I want to make sure I have 10 inches all the way around. So I know I will have 10 inches from this side to this side, but I'm not so sure about this. So in looking at this, my 10 inches is right here. So we're good to go. We're fine. So again, I'm going to start by manipulating my fabric to where I'm not cutting off a whole bunch, but I'm cutting off enough to start making my straight edges. So I'm going to start with this side and finding my line on the other side of the fabric, just making sure that that's nice and lined up. And then holding it firmly kind of in the middle. Now that edge is nice and cleaned up. And what I'm going to do here is, again, I'm going to count over 10. And then I put my ruler on that line. And now I have kind of a crown because of the points. Now I'm going to turn it this way because I want what I'm looking at when I'm beginning to make these cuts is I'm looking at where can I safely cut where I'm not going to put myself in jeopardy of not having enough fabric for this one, because these are so deep and it is pretty close, I am going to actually clean this edge up and get rid of these snarls on this side. So I got that one. And now I feel fairly confident that I can count over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And I am clearing these valleys by just shy of, well, just over an inch. So now that I have these both cut, we've got contrasting. That's one thing that's super important, is when you are doing a half square triangle, you want contrasting colors. If it's the same color value, it's not gonna come across as clearly as we would want it to. So that said, you notice I'm not using white or another traditional background color, because you don't have to. You are in charge of choosing your own adventure. So the first thing I'm going to do is I am going to take this over to the sewing machine with you, and we are going to make 2 half square triangles out of these 2 pieces. And that is just called the two half square triangle method. I'll meet you at the sewing machine. All right, so here we are at my sewing table, and I brought along our handy dandy ruler, and I've got our pieces that we are going to be cutting and sewing and then cutting. And the first thing you want to do is just get them all lined up. And then you'll want to have a mark that tells you where to sew. And that is going to be right down the middle. And so for darker fabrics, if you're in a situation where you have 2 dark fabrics, you can use a white chalk pencil for this, and it works just fine. It doesn't have to be a super dark line, just something that you can see as you're sewing. And hold this up to here. I'll make it a little bit darker so you all can see it. It's funny how when you see it with your eye, but the camera doesn't always pick up what you are seeing. And sometimes your ruler might try to migrate on you. All right. So there's the line. And what we're going to do now is, if we were going to do 1, then we would just sew right on the line, and then the other side would be, we'd cut a 1/4 inch from that line, and the other side would be all waste. And that's a lot of waste. In this instance, we are going to use our 1/4 inch foot, and we are going to be sewing on both sides of the line a 1/4 inch away, and that gives you the appropriate seam allowance for each of the half square triangles that we're going to make. So it's really simple. You just get it set up there and then hold your hands on either side so you're guiding both sides of the fabric through the foot, and that way the other piece on the bottom side isn't sliding around, and you have control over the fabrics. So here, I'm not even going to bother cutting the thread. Just flip it around and then line it back up with a 1/4 inch away from that line and sew down the other side. And cut that. And now we've got the fabric the way that we want it. And now what we're going to do is we're going to take our ruler and we're going to line it up on the pencil mark and cut these two in half. And sitting down, I could tell you, you lose your edge, which is seen by that. So just cut them in half. This mat is quite a bit older than the other one. It's probably time to retire it. But here we have 2 half square triangles. It's a whole lot easier than trying to figure out how to cut your triangles and then sew them together. Now there is a device that you could use that helps you cut those. This personally to me is my preferred way to make half square triangles. But everybody is different, and so you want to do it the way that you're comfortable with. So for now, I'm going to set these two aside, and I'm not going to press them open or anything. We're just going to set them aside. And now I want to show you how to make 4 at a time. We've got our green fabric and our pink fabric. They contrast very nicely. Here, I'm not going to draw any lines. I am just going to sew all the way around the outside 1/4 inch. This is more of the traditional lineup for your fabrics on the sewing machine. You can just sew down a 1/4 inch. And I just sew off the edge because I don't want to guess where 1/4 inch lands on that other side. You can if you want, personal preference. All right. So now we've got this all closed up, and I will say, it's got a little bunched up here on the corner, but I'm not going to worry about that too much because it's going to work itself out. It's not going to be noticeable in the final product. So for this one, I am going to cut from corner to corner, from here to here, and then from here to here, and that is going to create my 4 half square triangles for this particular method. Let me show you what that looks like. While I'm getting this done, what kind of projects are you all working on? See, I'll keep that there, and I'm going to push my sewing machine a little out of my way, and let's go over to the cutting table. All right, so here we have our piece. We've already cut the middle piece, the middle part. There we go. We want to keep this lined up and then take from corner to corner and cut like that. And that gives you 4 pieces. Now, remember what I said about cutting errors? Well, this is why you have to practice so that you get used to what is happening there. Now that piece, not really an error. It's within the 1/4 inch seam. Everything's enclosed in seams, but now we have 4 of the exact same half square triangles. And now we can actually start to do things with these. We can create a pinwheel, which goes a little something like this. Obviously, when it's sewn together, it's a little prettier. You can also do a square in a square. So you can have all the pinks to the center or all the greens. You can change out 2 of them and have an hourglass. Those are just a few of the types of blocks that half square triangles enable you to be able to do. That does it for us today. We went over 2 half square triangles, 4 half square triangles. We're going to go get into 8 and 16 and 32 next time. Any questions that you have for me, please post them in the comments. I would love to answer any questions that you have. In the meantime, I will see you here at the hive next time.